For me, I mean, it's, a bare minimum, I expect, 2 years, of good, solid work and training,
Right.
and then maybe even another 2 dedicated to the studio after that to go, look, this is your repayment to what I've taught you,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
is that now I've given you this tool, and it's taken you this long to get there.
Right.
Now, this is, and you may, I mean, I've seen artists turn around and go through that. And then next thing you know, they've spent, 15 years at that studio
Right.
because they've enjoyed it so much that's what they want. That's what they've
Right.
always looked for. You get ones now that they pop in, they'll get their apprenticeship, they get their license, and then they're out the door and they're opening a studio down the street.
And they don't
And
know
it's like,
anything.
and they know
Yeah.
nothing,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely nothing.
Feel called out.
And
Nothing. Welcome back to the Artistry Unearthed podcast. We are Cryptic Tattoo and Social Gallery. I'm Nate.
Dave,
Kelsey. We're still working on that.
Yeah, but we're chatting about apprenticeships, the do's and don'ts, pursuing one, what to expect in one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'll be good.
And we talked for a real long time, so it might be a
Yeah.
multi-parter.
Yeah, so this is like past us.
There's definitely some things that are specific to being employed by a shop that aren't necessarily things you would see if you're just coming in for art.
Exactly. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff and behind the curtain stuff that I think.
but I think a lot of people, they'll walk into a shop and they'll take anything that's given to them because they're so anxious to get into a shop.
Yeah.
And what they need to understand is that patience, it's that adage that we're always taught, patience is a virtue.
Yeah.
Be patient about it. If there's a shop that you're really adamant about getting into, keep at it.
Yeah.
Keep going in and keep talking and keep bringing new work and new portfolio stuff and keep at it. Don't just go in and pop into a shop because somebody's ready to take you because they want something. Or we got a spot for you. Okay, well, you may get in there. That may not be the vibe you're really looking for. You're just in there now because somebody took you.
Yeah.
Again, it's like picking your tattoo and getting something. Don't just settle on a shop because somebody's willing to go, yeah, well, I'm ready to, I'll take you on as an apprentice, because then you find out down the road that you just aren't going to learn what you need to learn.
Right.
You should be able to go in and know that when you step foot into that shop and you're given that apprenticeship, that you're going to learn everything that, I don't want to say, let me rephrase that. You're not going to learn everything. You're going to learn enough to do things the right way effectively without having to go and constantly look over somebody else's shoulder instead of being taught by the person that should be teaching you.
Yeah.
And that's just the technical side of it. That's just learning the machine and learning the tools and learning, the human skin and
I mean, there's a lot
To learn about art.
involved.
There's stuff to learn about business. There's stuff to learn about marketing. There's stuff to learn about.
I mean, you just
interacting with
your
other human
clients.
beings.
people getting brought in and just to turn and burn, and that's it. It's all about it's all about money.
Navigating big
it should
feelings.
it should be when you go into a studio seeking an apprenticeship, it should be about the art. It should be about the profession itself.
Right.
Where you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years. Can you see yourself sticking with this studio for that long?
Right.
Can you see yourself writing that out? Because for me, I mean, it's a bare minimum, I expect 2 years. Of good, solid work and training, and then maybe even another 2 dedicated to the studio after that to go, look, this is your repayment to what I've taught you.
Right.
Is that now I've given you this tool, and it's taken you this long to get there.
Right.
Now, this is and I mean, I've seen artists turn around and go through that, and then next thing you know, they've spent 15 years at that studio,
right?
Because they've enjoyed it so much that's what they want. That's what they've
Right.
always looked for. You get ones now that they pop in, they'll get their apprenticeship, they get their license, and then they're out the door, and they're opening a studio down the street,
And they don't
and
know
it's like,
anything.
and they know
Yeah.
nothing, absolutely nothing,
Feel called out.
and
Nothing.
and then so then you've got the oversaturation of studios in one geographic location, and it's like, wow, where did all of these come from? Well, it's because everybody all of a sudden has an apprenticeship, and then all of a sudden everybody's a business owner, and they can go out and run a business all on their own. Not to say that they can't be successful, don't get me wrong, but
it's a longer path.
It just seems to be the DNA now that I can walk in, get an apprenticeship, be out the door, done whatever, or they just bring in anybody off the street to go, oh well, they can tattoo, teach them just about the basic stuff, and go, okay, cool, man, now it's this, you owe me this and owe me this, and that's not how apprenticeships work,
Right.
man. You want to come in, you want to learn, and you want to apply yourself. If that meant cleaning the shop, like you were talking about earlier, if that meant coming in every day, and hanging out and cleaning the shop and just being a part of something, being a part of that team, and knowing, wow, this is an environment that I enjoy.
Right.
This is something that I want to be a part of. By all means, and that works. But if you're just going in and choosing the first shop that's willing to take you, there's something wrong with that.
And there's a lot of situations
You better do your homework.
where
do your
people
homework.
just reach a point where they're like, if I can just stick it out long enough to at least get my feet under me, and then I'll move on from there. But I mean,
but that's a bad choice. That's
it's a trap, but it's worked out for a lot of people. They've kept, and a lot of that comes down to their own discipline and their own tolerance.
It does, but if you look
luck.
at the majority of people, exactly. If you look at the majority of people, more times than not, that's not going to happen for them.
Yeah,
it's just not. I mean, that if I were to go back and look at where I was, when I was 18, and had no clue that I was going to be a tattoo artist, and then 10 years later, go, okay, wow, this is what I'm going to do. To just walk in and think, I would have thought something very, very weird, because I mean, I was kind of taught the same way. It was like I was given the apprenticeship, and then I was kind of shown a little bit of stuff, but then the rest was kind of left up to me to learn on my own. And that's, I mean, unless you are that driven and understand that this is what you're going to do with your life, then you are seriously being set up for failure. That's all it is. I mean, you're going to walk in, you're going to be shown crap, and you're going to be putting out crap, and that's all it's going to boil down to. You will never be a successful artist being taught like that. I mean, unless you're driven to go, look, nothing's going to keep me down. I'm going to excel at this, and I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can. That's kind of what I did.
Right.
I strive to want to know and learn and pick things up and research and watch other artists and ask questions and do those things.
Driven all day long though, but you have to have those other people to learn from, because it's,
well, you have to have that support system with anything. I mean,
you
if
can
you
just
don't have that
pick up and
support
figure
system,
out. Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to succeed.
And
I
some
mean,
people will manage just a little, but it's like even really talented artists that have learned under whatever circumstances, a common story is they go and they become their own private studio, or they go and do it themselves. And a lot of them look back and they're like, my work got worse since I wasn't a part of an environment, or without the push and the influence and of other artists. Like there's definitely reason for having a team of people that are close. You lose that push and that motivation to get better, and they see a decline in their work, and it's like, well, maybe just doing whatever I had to do just to get started, and be out on my own doing a private studio or just doing the bare minimum wasn't enough. And and that's for those who take their craft serious and have respect for the industry and for the craft and for their clients.
You have to. I mean, because if you're just brought in just to fill a space,
Yeah.
chances are you're not gonna learn anything. You're not gonna get, the industry's not gonna give back to you what you're expecting it to give you, because you're gonna have to put everything, not that you don't if somebody's helping you, but you're gonna have to give that 170% to get over that hump and go, okay, look, I've got to do this on my own. And if you, again, don't have that drive or that ambition, you're going to stay steadfast. You're going to be right where you're going to be at, and you're never going to evolve or grow.
Yeah.
And your work will always speak for itself. I mean, that's just how it is. If you can find that niche and find that good vibe that we've been talking about, during this cast, is that vibe is everything. If you feel good about it, then there's something to be said. Especially if you're shopping for an apprenticeship, you walk in and you got that great vibe, and you keep coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back. That says a lot for you as an individual,
right?
And how determined you are, because back then that's what it boiled down to. I mean, it was all about knocking the door down and being consistent about it, not going, okay, this place shot me down, and I'm just going to go to the next spot until somebody
keep knocking
takes
down
me.
that door.
Keep knocking the door down until
every other day. Come back
until they tell you, until they say, look, man, okay,
Somebody's going to get a restraining order. And
so it's like, you start off as
borderline restraining order, then by all means, you know what, we got you.
I mean, you know how many times, like, a lot of apprentices and really successful tattoo artists started off as just people who just wanted to hang out with other artists, and they loved to have tattoos. They loved the industry. They just wanted to be tattooed. They wanted to know the people that they admired to do the work. And maybe sometimes they would ask, like, can I have an apprenticeship? Or other times, you're here every day. You do more work around here than we do for keeping the place clean. Like, are you interested? There's a lot of success stories where a lot of people are invited into the family, and and it's not even something that they expected, but then they found themselves
maybe they do have some artistic ability, but in the midst of them doing stuff around the shop, they're sitting there, they're drawing, they're doing things, and that sparks interest. And then it's like, oh, hey, have you noticed that Jim over there has been drawing an awful lot? Have you even seen what he's been putting out? Maybe we should do this. And
he knows the shop better than we do now.
Yeah,
And if you're around the shop, you're going to have an idea of whether or not that person is going to be a decent teacher, because there are people that can have a good vibe all day long that are garbage teachers. And you'll know if you're asking somebody questions like, hey, what are you doing right there? If it's the person that answers every question, oh, I don't know, you just do it. Oh, it's just, you just feel it. You just know it. You just do it.
No, you need to understand why you're
teaching.
doing it.
That's not teaching.
No.
Now, when my work for that person might be putting out really great stuff, but that's not teaching.
No.
And so, like, your time is absolutely the most valuable resource you have. And if that means, you find the one or two shops where you're like, these are a positive place with positive people who are putting out the art where I want to be in 5 years, and it means you have to bust tables that much longer until you're able to get in there, do that instead of going to one of these apprentice factories that are just cranking people out, getting them licenses as fast as they can, not even necessarily paying that much attention to what the regulations and the rules are of what they're supposed to be learning. Like putting a machine in their hand, like as soon as they get there, red flags. That's not a place that's going to give you, like, you're going to be playing so much catch up on the back end. Speaking from experience.
Expect to spend, 2 years of your life in the very beginning, doing things and understanding things. I can't say it enough. I mean, when I started, I worked a full-time job, literally. I worked from 8 to 5 for the state, and then drove an hour to the shop that I was apprenticing at, and would stay there from 6 to midnight, and then drive an hour home, go to bed, and do it all over again 6 days a week. 5 days a week, other than Saturday. And then Saturday I would go and spend a full day at the shop. So, I mean, those are the sacrifices that are put in. It was a consistent thing for the longest time of this is what I
Right.
got to do. This is what I got to do. This is what I got to do. This is what I got to do. Can't don't expect to come in and think that this is going to pay your bills because it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to. If this is what you're after, then you're going to have to make that sacrifice. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
have to go, okay, look, I am going to have to work a job, from for the next couple of years until I can get my feet underneath me,
Mm-hmm.
get my apprenticeship done, and then get licensed and then start going, okay, this is now I can kind of start my career
Mm-hmm.
and move
Mm-hmm.
on from my full-time job and go, this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
Because by that time, in that couple of years, you've been able to grow and establish and learn, and you've been talking and networking yourself and talking to people, and it sparks interest. And then
Mm-hmm.
next thing you're licensed, you've got your machine in your hand, and you've got people going, cool, man, you tattoo, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And by then you're doing things the right way, the correct way. You've got
Mm-hmm.
all those good understandings of how this business works,
Mm-hmm.
not just here, I'm going to throw you in here, put a machine in your hand in 2 weeks, and guess what you're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
No, 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 no. If I did that, I would feel like a shitty human for going here. I'm going to just put a machine in your hand. I hope you can handle that.
Hope you got some friends that don't care if you screw up
Don't
their
you
arms and
screw up their
legs.
arms and legs. I will just black it out. It's
Only hurt the ones
okay.
you love.
Right? So, understand that's how a good solid apprenticeship, I think, should work. In my opinion. I mean, I don't want to speak for every artist out there because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not every artist. In my personal experience, it's a good solid 2 years. Let's learn.
Right.
Let's experience this
Mm-hmm.
together. And then by the time we're done and you hit the ground, it's all going to be up to you. You're going to have all the necessary tools and knowledge that I can give you to succeed. And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't, then that's more resting on your shoulders than it is mine because I've done my job.
Mm-hmm. What
You
would
know,
you say somebody needs to know, like by the end of their apprenticeship? This says this person is ready to finish an apprenticeship. This is a full-fledged licensed artist ready to go. And it is not, 50 procedures, I feel like. But what is it? What should an apprentice know when they're done?
they should have a good grasp on color theory.
Mm-hmm.
They should have a good grasp on needle groupings, they're the certain types of needles, how they work, what they're used for, why they're used,
Mm-hmm.
hand technique,
Mm-hmm.
hand stroke, good line work,
Mm-hmm.
good color packing. Understanding again, just more so of the basics, and then exceed. You're gonna do for me in that 2 years. You're gonna exceed your 50 procedures and then some by the time I
Mm-hmm.
get you licensed, because by the time I see fit to go, okay, look, I think you're ready. You probably will already have 150, 200, 300 pieces under your belt,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and then be able to go, you know what, I could solidly go, let's license this person,
Yeah.
and get them where they need to be, because once they get that license, it's just going to be like that.
Yeah. And that's
And they're going to be able,
tough.
because they're going to be sought after at that point, because they're putting out stellar work at that point.
Yeah.
It's not just, oh, well, they're still wet behind the ears,
Right.
after 6-8 weeks and going, here we go, you're licensed. Guess what? No, it's you have a solid portfolio of stuff that you could show people
Mm-hmm.
and go, look, you know what? I've been at it for, a good year now. I've gotten a year's worth of just solid knowledge and training,
Right.
and started out, and over that last year I've been working consistently on bettering each tattoo that I do. And in a year's time, like I said, you probably do a good 200-300 tattoos,
Mm-hmm.
and by that time you aren't going to be the greatest in the world. No, by no
Mm-hmm.
means, but you're going to have a good wealth of knowledge on
Yeah.
skin types and
Foundations,
what's going to work.
versatility.
Yeah, you are going to
Right.
have a
Mhm.
good foundation to get out there and go, look, I'm going to succeed
Right.
at
Every
what I'm
state,
doing.
yeah, and I
'Cause-
mean, and every state's requirements are wildly different. But Missouri, what is it, 300 hours and then 50 procedures,
Which
and it's
is-
not like you get. I mean, that took me 3.5, maybe 4 months, and it was all about just knocking out procedures because the hours came in sooner for me than the procedures. And then like it's not like you're given a license and you're giving superpowers. Like you know everything now.
I think mine was like 8 weeks.
Was it?
I think so.
So I was.
I think Missouri's got one of the what's
you're
the
right.
word I'm looking
I
for? It's got one of the easiest, I think, besides a state that just doesn't require a license.
It's not
to-
stringent.
No, to
Right.
just blow through an apprenticeship. I mean, is my, and the thing that I always refer to is hairstylists. I mean, and just because I've been around that block,
Yeah.
you know, to do hair, it was 1,600 hours, 1,600
Yeah.
hours, and so many procedures in each individual category that you had to do before you could even go and do a written and then a practical exam. And that was just doing hair. Granted, you're messing with chemicals and
Yeah.
things, and I get that. And it is easy, don't get me wrong, to burn somebody, to
yeah.
do those things, you know, what we call the pocket curl, when you perm somebody's hair and the perm rod come out, you know, and you just
Yeah.
put it in your pocket, you know, because you're like, oops, and you come over that. But to go,
But a lot of what you're doing is temporary.
but to permanently change somebody's skin, you're altering somebody's
Right.
skin
And
for
being
the rest
trained
of their
by-
life, and then you get 300 hours and 50 procedures
And 300 hours in the place, not
and
not
there
even
are
really
states,
doing
there
anything.
are states
300
out there,
hours
because I've
sleeping, yeah.
researched, there are states out there that will do practical exams.
Yeah.
They will make you set up and do a tattoo procedure right in
But
front
they
of
have
them.
seasoned professionals who are familiar with the field,
Exactly.
like actual
Which is-
tattooers,
which
to be
is
able
good.
to look
I
at it and be
mean,
like, that's
we-
good and that's garbage. Where our state is like, well, who are we to tell what's good and what's bad
what's
art?
good and
It's
what-
not about
what-
art.
No.
It's about safety, and it's about like, you know,
What you're doing to somebody.
There is
yeah.
bad glove procedure.
Yeah.
There is bad line work. There is blown out tattoo. There is
Yeah.
stuff that is bad.
There is scarring. There's all
Yeah.
kinds of things, you know. And when you're cutting somebody loose in 30 days, because that's what it takes. Yeah, you can come to a shop and hang out, and as long as you're just hanging out, that's hours in the book. You know, it's not 300 hours of physically tattooing somebody. Which, if that's what it needs to be, that's by all means change it to that, to where it's, you know, you're doing 300 hours of physical tattooing, not, oh, you just come to the shop, hang out for 8 hours, you did one tattoo that took you 5 minutes. Wow, okay, that just doesn't, for me, it doesn't work like that. I mean, these are all things that need to be worked with representatives and legislators of the state of Missouri, in order to get these things changed and go, look, you know, this has to change. I mean, there's too many things that go wrong. Too many things that go wrong, and people don't understand why, and there's nothing to protect them, you know. And it's in especially when you got somebody that's turned loose in 30 days, and there you go, it's then next thing you know, they've jacked somebody up, and guess who's getting sued? It's not the person that taught them, it's the person that inked them, you know.
Right.
And that's
like, here's a machine, you're
horrible.
on your own, kid. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Have fun.
doesn't
You know,
reflect badly on me,
but make
it's
sure
on
that
you.
you write me my boot rent check. You know, because I
Right.
need that. You know, and oh, it was my bad if you tore somebody up. That's not my fault. But yet you're not taught any of those proper ways.
To
you know?
me, so I got burned by the first shop I was at, which is not the one we were at together. And the red flag I got from that is, if you come in there and they are bragging about how much money you're going to make right out the gate and how much money all these people make, that's a massive red flag, because the amount of people that are making like Lamborghini money on tattooing in the Midwest is a limited number of people. And so if they're doing that and in this shop is about their ego and not about teaching you, that's a red flag. And if you come in and somebody's bragging about how quick they can get you licensed, that is a person that is not invested in your goals, your
They're
learning,
invested in
your
themselves.
skills.
They're not invested in you.
If you're in an apprenticeship that's done right, I feel like you probably won't be making money for a good year. And then maybe the second year you're trying to break even on shop rent and maybe you have a little bit left over to upgrade your materials and supplies. But like if they're promising you're going to be in the door, out the door, ready to go in 90 days or less, and you're going to be making money, that's a person who wants a booth rent check.
And I was when I was brought in and invited in, I honestly do feel like it was just a friend and another artist colleague just wanting, I do feel that there was genuine merit to it. I do feel like, but like, I do honestly feel like I was invited in to be, to explore something new that I haven't considered before. He thought, I really do believe that he felt that I would be good at it, and that it wasn't for there wasn't some ulterior motive, at least in the beginning. I think it worked out so well. Like, I was the first of a downhill trend.
A wave.
I was the catalyst that it worked out so well with me that it just
Right.
kind of a light bulb went off. And then after me,
Oh, I can do this with anybody.
But
I could do this with
you-
anybody, and he wasn't afraid to. And that also involved you. But to be honest with you, I think me and David and Mandy pushed for you more than he did. He would have been just fine to be like, no. By that
Right.
point, he had already kind of gotten that stigma of just taking anybody. Honestly, if we were just like, nah, not interested, like,
Right.
or if we even gave him a bug that like, but it's like, honestly, of all of them, I don't know. I'd almost give her a shot. Like,
Right. Well, and if you go in a shop looking for an apprenticeship and they've got multiple apprentices in the shop, you need to
Right.
check into that. And it might be that there's like 2 master level artists and they each have their own apprentice, and it's
Yeah.
fine. But that's something to ask. And I was specifically asking when I was looking for a shop, how many apprentices do you take at a time? And most of the people I asked would laugh and be like, 1, it's so much work. I wouldn't take on more
And-
than 1. And
2 in 25 years.
you've had 2 ever?
Two.
Yeah.
and he had 7
Yeah,
at
it was
once.
7 at once. Yeah, and I asked, how many would you ever take at once? I would never take more than 1. And then
Right.
at one point it was 7 at the same time. And it's like,
No,
red
2.
flag, red flag, red flag. 7 red flags.
So
But
yeah, I think a part of my setup was like, I do genuinely feel like it was with good merit, but I think it kind of
did anyone ever
it
like
started an avalanche of
sit
problems.
down with you and teach you like, okay, here's the difference between drawing on paper versus drawing art designed for the purpose of putting it on someone's skin in the future. Here's some art things you need to change to make it work well on skin.
I figured it out on my
Those are-
own with YouTube, but it was
Here's-
actually he made a lot of
Here's
connections.
how you lay a stencil on a person. Here's how you
Right.
get it lined up right.
He
Here's how you
did
get
show
it
me that.
transferred
He did have me
properly.
put a stencil on a client once for him.
once.
Yeah.
Once is not
And then
One.
and
how
then
you
yeah,
master that
and then
skill.
there was the here's some honeydews. I want you to fill up 4 of them, and I want you to go I want you to learn to go. It's better to go light than too deep. And honeydews have really thin skins, which is why my saturation sucked for like several months.
That's a melon
Because-
in case anybody that's
Yeah, so it's like,
listening doesn't know.
you're not really tattooing it, you're scratching off the
Yes.
surface. It's like so it's like that's why my saturation, so when I brought it to skin, that's
Yes.
why everything was falling out, was because I
Yep.
couldn't go deep enough.
Yep.
I was too
Same.
nervous, That's
And
why
I'm
I chewed
still
up
having
a
problems
spot on my
because for leftover from my honeydew.
That's why I chewed up a spot with the first time I ever used a mag, because I never used a mag on a
Right.
melon.
Did anyone
He's just boring a hole in it.
Right.
Just shave it.
Did anyone ever look at like your hand position and how you were holding the machine in the hand and like how the machine was angled in relation to the skin and what direction you were pulling your line with the angle of the machine?
He did.
But the person you were apprenticing under
No,
didn't.
nobody who was responsible for me gave me the most like helpful advice.
Oh, I was responsible for
Like-
you
Were you?
later.
There's-
You did-
I
you
use,
assumed it then.
I don't use the word later loosely.
but you
Or
did.
later.
He was not taken on as an apprentice by you. You scooped up a stray cat and invested. And
Well,
it paid off.
right, yeah.
But
I don't know
it's
what it
not
was. I don't know where. It was one meeting
how
where
it
we
should
all
be.
had like this conversation, and I think my mentor was actually out that day. And finally, it was just a casual conversation where like, oh God, David does talk. And they
Mm-hmm.
all apologized to me. Like they were treated. And here's the thing. I don't look back and think I was mistreated at all. I was just the new guy. I didn't think anything of it. And I understood, and they explained that like, look, it's not you. It was your situation. Like
Right.
we're really, because up until that point, there was supposed to be a democracy. amongst the team as what that I walked into. When I showed up, because I walked in to get this tattoo and my wife got a similar one, and it was while we were getting tattooed that he offered. And so that next Tuesday, the next opening day, I was like, yeah, I gave it a thought for a couple of days. I think I'll take you up on it. And so when I walked in, they looked at me like, who the hell is this guy? One of the artists that was there was just like, hey, how can I help you? I'm like, yeah, I'm here for an apprenticeship. I got offered.
And they'd never heard of you.
And they didn't hear about it. They didn't know anything about it. And I didn't really know. I didn't, but I knew I was the new guy, and I knew that there was a tight knit kind of group to him. So it's like I knew it was going to be awkward, and it was several months before, but I was able to kind of weasel into a couple of artists and get information and talk to them. But I was learning mostly on YouTube. And then watching them over their shoulders. I would go around to each of them and look and watch. And every now and then I would ask a question if I didn't feel like I was bothering him too much.
But how often did the person you were apprenticing under watch you tattoo? Did the person ever watch you for an entire?
No, they just sat next to me and they're over here and they just worked on their clients. And then there was a couple of major moments where I was kind of scared that there was some saturation issue.
No, you should never.
I walked up and I asked him, and he was always friendly.
It should never be tattooing while your apprentice is tattooing.
I was in the middle of printing off my stencil for my first tattoo that my apprentice, or the person I was apprenticing under, knew was coming. It was scheduled. And he just left, just like without even telling me he was leaving. He was just gone. I turned around and I had a stencil and I had a client. And he was gone. Yeah. And he said like, I want you to do this today. Like, yeah, I have a headache, but I want you to do this today. And so I had been given the expectation, you will finish this tattoo today. Yeah. And I had nobody. And I hadn't been taught anything. It was just go figure out what you can on some fruit, There was I think you probably watched me tattoo a total of less than 10 minutes if you add it all up.
There was lettering that came in, and I was still an apprentice. I was still really new. And I was walk-ins were crazy as it was for me. Like my head was just because I was still in that mode. But he had a client that was coming in and he just didn't feel like doing it. He says, I'm going to go home. You take her. And he pushed her off on me. And I had no idea what it was. He didn't know what it was. And it turned out to be just a bunch of lettering, which at the time I was just like, okay. Cause I want to be helpful. I want to be a friend, Right. I mean, he was a friend. And, but my nerves, like I started getting dizzy just because like this person's on the way and he just, he went home and I don't know, he maybe wasn't feeling right or maybe he had a headache or whatever. I can't remember. And I just remember that like between that and then another moment where it's like I was doing heavy saturation of blue. It was the first time I ever did. And they took a picture of it whenever it was kind of more healed and they sent it to me. And first of all, phones and pictures don't do it justice in person. I've learned this enough. Unless you're putting filters on it to make it super fancy, a phone just does not do an actual tattoo in justice in person. But I saw the picture and I thought the lighting was like patchiness. And I went to him and I was like, man, I don't know what I did wrong. Like what's going on here? And his only response was, you did a bad tattoo. It happens. Everybody does it. I fucked up a lot of people. And I'm just like, that's not cool. Like, wow. I don't, like, that's not helping.
Right. And I don't think it was my personal sensitivity when he's like, you're a shit tattooer. You suck.
Yeah, he was just casually teasing me about it. I'm like,
what should I do differently?
Well,
he's like, all of it, you suck. Like, okay.
It's because you suck. Yeah, it's no big deal. You suck. Okay. Like, yeah, but I don't have to. I don't have to suck. Not everything has to be a crash course. I promise
I'm teachable.
Boy, that's a great confidence.
I don't have to fall. Like I'm the person. I don't have to fall on my face to learn anything. I'm smarter than that. Like if I can avoid it and I can study it ahead of time and be prepared, I'm going to take that route. Yeah. So when he came in for a touch up, it turned out to be not nearly as bad as I thought. It's like there was a couple of spots that I brought to the edges and I put a little bit. So I realized that that was kind of that feeling like I really couldn't confide in him, like. As a, on a professional standpoint. Right. And he even said before, like 2 or 3 apprentices more, he's like, we were in the back and he was just like, man, I suck at teaching. And I look at him and he goes, I do. I'm like, I know.
I'm your friend, but I'm not going to.
I was like,
so I got 5 more people coming in.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I know. Cause we've had to pick up like 2 of them. And that's fine. It's like if he wants to admit it, that's cool. Like honestly, like hey, you tried something, it didn't work out, it caused more problems than good. Okay, that's fine. Be better, right? Or stop.
Right.
And it's, you know, because because here's the thing, there's no doubt in my mind, and there's something that I will always say, is that he has afforded some amazing opportunities to people who really had
Yes.
no chance.
Mm-hmm.
And they have taken it and they have done some great things. I mean, they're just for them, great
Right.
things for them. They have a client base that likes their work. That's, you know, he has afforded an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect that.
Yeah,
But at
this
the
is
same time, as a teacher and as, you know, like some, you know, as, you know, with you know, as an influence through like
mm-hmm.
clever kaiju, like focusing on the artists and their community and their well-being,
Right.
like there's definitely a better way to do it. And that's kind
Yeah.
of what, you know,
And this
that's
is
kind of what
not
this is
a
about.
mad at a person moment. This is just like systematically,
Right.
you know, on paper, in theory, how should this work? And there's lots of different ways for it
I
to
see.
work,
Yeah.
but there are just as many ways it shouldn't. And I feel like if I was to go back, the reason I jumped on the first shop that offered me a yes was because of my own low self-confidence as an artist, who typically didn't finish art that was given to me unless it was a specific commission. And I didn't feel like I had my own style, and I felt like I could only, you know, look at something somebody else had drawn and try to draw my own version of it. I didn't feel like I could make anything of my own, and I felt like I didn't belong in the industry because, you know, I was in my 30s. I wasn't 19. I didn't have gauge years. I didn't have a bunch of tattoos. Like, I'm, you know, a picket fence suburban mom, and I've always worked in education. And so, like, I didn't feel like I belonged. And so the first person that said yes, that was at a shop that had multiple women at it whose art I liked, and that somebody I knew the shop owner, I was like, okay, this is a safe place. This is fine. I missed so many red flags. If I was to
Yeah.
go back and be able to talk to myself, I would say to myself to have confidence in myself and know my value, and to find shops that I knew would also respect my value and invest in me and teach me properly. And if that meant I had to spend 2 more years working on my art on my own, not on skin. If you want to be an apprentice, do not practice on your own on skin.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea. But if I could have practiced my own like art theory and improved my artistic skill on my own while waiting for a spot to open up for me and getting to know those people at a positive shop where someone would invest in me, I think at the end of a 3-year journey, I would be further ahead and better off than rushing into a place where it's like, oh, they said yes, they'll get me through quick. I'll figure it out on my own as I go, you know, like,
No, you don't
and-
ever want to figure it out. on
no.
your own.
And I've
I mean,
been,
tattooing is
that
not.
is so hard.
I'm so lucky that I found you guys to help me on that journey, but I still think it's still not the same as if it would have been a formal apprenticeship.
Right.
Whereas if like you had formally agreed to apprentice me and taught me all the things I needed to know and said, okay, now you're ready, you know, because once you get to the point you have a license and you're paying booth rent and you're in a shop and you have that responsibility and you have those clients, it's really hard to make that time for the amount of professional and personal development it takes to do an entire apprenticeship. Don't rush to the end point and skip the whole journey because the journey's there for a reason, you know?
Right. Not everything about tattooing has to be a hustle. And if you're just doing it just to make money, you're taking advantage of other people and their lives and their safety. And I mean, and it's like there's variations of it. Some of it's not as cold as that, but the fact is that's what it comes down to. You know, if you really actually respect your craft and your place in it and what you have to bring to the table, you're going to take the time and you're going to put the time and the work into like understanding this is who I am. This is what I can bring. This is what I can provide to other people. And this is what I can use to teach other people. And it's a much bigger picture than just drawing on people.
You got to trust the process.
And your apprenticeship is not just about drawing on people or being a cool
Right.
artist and showing off to your friends. You know, we're not in school anymore. Like
Mm-hmm.
all
Oh,
my
this is
drawings
a-
are earthworm
this
gems
is
that I
a
took to
job.
school to, you know, no, your clients are your bread and butter.
Yep.
Like
This
your
is a
clients
career.
are the
It's not
only
just
reason,
fun and
and
games.
nothing about that what we do is needed. We're not. This is a novelty job. Like people enjoy it and they find peace with it. They find therapy in it. It's absolutely there, but nobody needs it for their.
It's a luxury.
It's a luxury.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a luxury thing, and the fact that anybody has the time and the money and the trust to spend a couple of painful hours with you and pay you for it is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's going to last their entire life.
There's
How
a
many
lot of
gifts?
responsibility in that.
Yeah. it's an incredible amount of respect. Yeah, you're right, and it's a lot of pressure. And if any artist that goes in
That's
there,
I mean, clients invest their time in you,
right,
you know,
they're
and
they're
that's the thing, you know,
they're giving you their body in ways that they would never do for anybody else.
no, exactly. It's almost like a marriage.
It is. I mean, yeah. Unless you
It
marry
is.
a tattoo artist, in which
mean,
case it's
yeah.
like a double marriage. Like,
So I mean, you're getting all of that. I mean, they trust you that much to you know do the things on them that nobody else, you know, they would trust nobody else to do. Not even their own significant other.
and you know they
so to
feel
speak.
like oftentimes though as you grow as an artist, they feel like a valuable part of that. Like there's some clients of mine especially
Yeah,
that,
they like to be a part of your growth.
they've been a part of everything that I've done when it comes to the comic series, when it comes to the animation, you know, all the print, like everything that I do. Otherwise, they were there every step of the way, and they were just like, "Yeah, man, here, have some money. Yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah, keep going, keep going, keep going." And now I'm like, "Hey, I'm doing a new thing." You would think they'd be like, "Dude, come on," but no, they're in the chair now.
Would you stop, Nate?
I was just reading your cartoons. I was just, you know,
And now you're a tattoo artist.
and now you're gonna like, you know, tattoo all this cool stuff on me. And it's just like, you know, that is something that you can't just walk in and just get. You have to earn that, and it takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes, you know, especially with people with like rough backgrounds who are turning their life around. You know, I again, like, and at least in the spot of you know where we came from, like I have a lot of respect for the opportunities that he has afforded, but I also see in hindsight how much dependency he relies on him for that to work, and I have no dependency on, like, I had no dependency on him, and that's not something that everybody has. I don't know if that's a privilege that I need to check, but it's like sometimes, you know, like I had the right and to just up and leave at any time. My biggest goal was, or my biggest drive was the fact that I was making myself sick and losing sleep over a craft that I had never done before. And it would be a shame if I just put myself through all that hell myself and just walked away from it. That was my biggest driving force. That, and actually the biggest was probably because I didn't want to disappoint my wife, because she actually likes what I was doing.
Well,
She
but
thought I was good.
so in terms of like shops in general, there are shops you walk into that they will show you by their behaviors and the things they say what they're most interested in. And for a lot of them, it is the bottom line. You've got, you know, the owner of the shop that's hardly ever even tattooing, that's working on their second sports car and plays video games all day, or just entirely dedicates their day to smoke breaks or whatever. I'm not talking about a particular person, but there are people that are doing that.
Right.
And there might be the ones that say, you have to be here the second the shop opens. You have to be here the second the shop closes. When we have a flash sale, you're going to work, a 20-hour day. And, you know, they're not concerned about who you are as a person and your growth and your work-life balance and
Right.
where you're planning to go with your career trajectory. And then there's people that will invest in you as a person and who care, like, oh yeah, you want to get better at that thing. What can we do to help you get better
Right.
at that thing? Or your significant other just had surgery or is sick. Like, oh, absolutely, we'll cover for you. Like, let us know what we can do. And call me on the weekend and we'll bring the truck and we'll go pick up the couch for the new shop. And there's places that you're working together and actually creating a work family, and then there's places that will use the word family as a way
Loosely.
to manipulate you.
Right.
Very
Yeah.
loosely.
And to
Yeah.
say you owe me something that you don't actually owe me, because I own your time, I own your talent, I own a portion of your money, and you are mine. And so be watching out for people that want to own you and manipulate you versus like help you flourish and grow. And it's fair to have expectations and have boundaries as the person taking on an apprentice. But, at the end of the day, there's a motivation behind that relationship, and you need to be sussing out whether it's a positive one or something toxic
Okay.
and predatory.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What do you feel about a paid apprenticeship where somebody charges money for an apprentice to study under them? Yay, nay? Are there certain
I don't think
regards?
there's anything wrong with it.
No?
I mean, if it's done right, I mean, I think a lot of that depends on the intention of the apprentice. You know, if they're coming in with the mindset that they just want to learn and get out because they want to go and open a shop of their own and do their own thing,
Right.
then by all means, you know, I don't, it's taken me almost 25 years to get where I'm at, you know, and I'm far from being where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But to take my knowledge and run with it and go and make your own money because I just gave you something, um, it's kind of painstaking, you know, not
Right.
that I'm creating competition, but it's like for me to teach you, have you turn around after I license you, get you licensed, and you walk out my door and you go and open a studio, you know, even across town.
Mm-hmm.
You've taken what I've given you to make you money.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just even on a college level, I mean, it's no different. I mean, you go and you pay a college tuition to learn something to go and utilize what you've learned to
Right.
make money. You don't get to go into college and go, well, I'm going to learn this for free and then go down the street and become a lawyer
Mm-hmm.
or a doctor.
Right.
You're paying for that knowledge. So in my thinking, if that was the direction, absolutely, yeah, I could see charging for that. If their intention is to learn and then go, you know what, I'm going to spend the next 2-3 years with this shop and invest in
Right.
that for as a repayment to go, look, you know, you taught me something valuable that I can take with me anywhere in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm going to give back to you. By all means, you know, I won't charge you a dime.
Right. I
you
mean,
know,
there's
to
that
teach you.
transparency and that honesty about it, but at the same time, it's just like, okay, like a lot of people coming into tattooing, you know, especially when it comes to an apprenticeship, which is not paid, and we'll talk about that in a minute. That's my next question. But like, they don't have a lot to work with. They don't have, you know, 10, 15 grand. I don't know what you would charge if you did, but like they don't have that kind of money.
What do you mean,
You
what
are
would
affording them an
what?
opportunity to step into a world that they can take and do for the rest of their
And
life.
make 200 times
Right.
what I would charge to teach you.
But
you
at the
know?
same time, like the fact is apprenticeships are expensive. A
Mm-hmm.
mentor who actually does it effectively and does it well, like they're taking time away from their clients to teach you. They are taking clients themselves to give you that they would normally be working on, to give you opportunity to work on and get your skills up.
Sharing walk-ins.
They're sharing walk-ins. They
Usually
are
sharing
all of their
supplies
supplies.
at the
It's not like apprentices typically have a machine and all their supplies or whatever. So there's a lot of money spent in ink and supplies. And you know, when you're blessed with your first machine, oftentimes, you know, with apprenticeships.
Well, and the cost of the space.
And
Because if
you're
there's
right.
space you're using,
Because that could
and
have been
you're
a
paying-
spot that somebody else could have been paying booth
Yeah.
rent for.
Right.
And
that's
it's
a
not
significant cost.
selfish. It's just that's just business. That's just these are the costs that have to go. It takes a lot of time. Whenever somebody is struggling during their apprenticeship and they can't get past a certain hurdle, that's something that the mentor or the teacher takes home with them. Like they go home and they're up at late at night staring at the ceiling going, man, they're struggling with this. How do we solve this? Or you know, and it's not just like in the shop. It's like oftentimes there's a lot of mentors out there who take responsibility for their apprentices' livelihood because they know that during that time they're not legally allowed to charge for money, so they're not making any money during this time. So they'll pitch in to help them with bills or like, you know, car repairs.
That's the reason why when I mentioned that earlier is that was my sacrifice. I worked a full-time job. That's what took care of my bills. I knew that tattooing wasn't going to pay it took me a long time to step out from underneath that umbrella and go, you know what? This is what I'm going to do full-time.
Full-time, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to and it wasn't until I felt comfortable to go, okay, you know what? I can now physically go, I am not going to work, you know, in any other field other than this, and this is what's going to make me my money.
Right.
Knowing that you know, I can go and put in a 40-hour work week and not make a dime
Right.
versus going over here and being employed by, McDonald's or whatever, and understand I'm going to put in a 40-hour work week and I'm going to get a paycheck.
Right.
It takes a lot of stability to know that that's where you're going to, so working a full-time job while I did an apprenticeship was extremely beneficial for me because then I could still take care of my bills. I could still do the things, but I was also learning a trade
Right.
at that point that I knew that no matter what I did, like I could stop tattooing right now and go and work anywhere else and
Yeah.
I mean,
make a paycheck and be okay if that's
pretty
what I wanted
normal
to
for
do.
the first few years
Right.
to have like a second
But
job, like be bussing
you
tables at
want
night
to
and
have
tattooing
something
a day,
that is going to help you
Right.
pay your bills until you reach that point to where you're like, okay, now I can step out and go, this is what I'm going to do full time. I did see, other place that we were at that an individual, one of the individuals there did that, worked a job. And then when they were ready, a couple of them, as a matter of fact, and when they were ready to just step away, they
Right.
did so.
Right.
But they at that point must have felt comfortable enough to
Right.
to go, look, okay, I can physically and mentally do this
Right.
without skipping a beat and knowing that I can take care of what I need to take care of. It's thinking that you're just going to jump right into this and make all this money and you're going to be able to pay bills and make money hand over fist is
It's not
is
realistic.
not
Yeah,
realistic. That is not
completely
realistic.
I mean, for the most part, a lot of people, that's like they can't afford to pay like a large chunk of money to somebody to teach them like a tuition, so they pay their tuition with work.
Exactly.
Time and energy and effort in the shop. There's there's cleaning,
it's a
there's
time,
taking out
it's
trash,
swapping
sweeping,
time,
mopping.
swapping time for time. If I'm
Right.
going to give you my time, this is what I expect in return. That's why I always generally will tell them, even my first apprentice, Tim, told him, look, you're going to do this. You're going to have to invest this time after the fact.
Right.
And a lot of people see it as
And he did so, and now he is way beyond what I would have ever expected. He is a very, very well spoken for artist, and sought after. And that's a win for me.
Right.
That shows his time, his dedication to this craft and going, look, he put forth this time to do this. Now I'm going to give this back to him.
Right.
And
he gave
and
you
for
what
me
he
to
had,
look
and you
back
gave
at,
him what
and
you
for me
had.
to look back and go, wow, I watched his success just
You helped that bird
explode.
fly the
Right.
nest. Yeah.
I helped him get where he
Yeah.
was going,
Right.
and it's amazing. That is better than getting any money from him. It
Right.
was to watch that success and that huge success story happen in front of my eyes.
But there's a lot of value in being able to take time to teach somebody before you even hold a machine, before you even know art or human beings. Like, understand how a shop works. Like how to answer the phone, how to communicate with people, how to answer their questions, how to make them feel comfortable with,
How to sell
with
a
coming
tattoo,
in,
how
how
to-
to
yeah.
sell
Pricing
it,
works.
how pricing works, how to deal with big egos
Paperwork.
with artists and people,
Yeah.
how to deal with like big emotions, because you're dealing with something that and it's just like the stress of a lot of stuff behind the scenes like that. And a lot of tattooing happens to be more of the just the business side, the respect side, and like showing pride in the place that is basically your second home.
Right.
It's like, and if you can show that you give it, you care about the location that we're in, because what you do here and how you take care of it represents everybody in it.
around you.
And unfortunately, a lot of this is like being able to do that to afford what we're affording you. That's a fair trade.
Yeah, it's a give and take.
But there's a lot of people who feel that is free labor.
Yeah.
Well,
that it's
You
almost
owe
slave
me.
labor, right?
You
So-
owe me.
Like,
I
well,
would-
you shouldn't treat your apprentices like that, making them sweep, mop, take out trash, answer phones. Like, and I mean, yeah, there's some hazing, and there's, depending on where you're at, there's,
which can be toxic.
which
or
is
it
very
can be
toxic,
just,
and it
letting
depends on
people into your
Or
inside.
not
be
everybody's
fun.
like that.
So coming from education world, it's really different. There is no less value in learning tattooing as a skill versus taking a for credit class. There's no less value in that than in hair school or as apprenticing under an electrician. However, the nature of tattooing and what attracts so many people to it is this incredible level of freedom and independence it allows. And it gives you all the freedom and independence to go amazing places and do great things. And it gives you all the freedom and independence to be not doing great things and to
be
take
in bad
advantage of people.
places.
And yeah, and so I would caution people against just dropping a ton of money right out the gate on an apprenticeship if you don't know what you're getting into. Because
Right.
when you sign up for a class at a hair school, there's paperwork,
You know what
there's
you're
a
getting.
contract. Yep, there's an agreement. You will be here for this amount of time. It's going to take this long. You're going to put in this. You're going to learn these XYZ skills. If you don't learn them in this amount of time, it's going to take, you've got to master these things before you're done. When you get to the end of this, this is what you're going to have. This is the piece of paper that tells the world, you know the thing, you're ready to go, you can do it safely. And if I have heard a lot of stories of people getting into an apprenticeship and either handing a bulk amount of cash up front and then the person never taught them anything and they were on their own, bulk amount of cash up front, they get ghosted, or showing up and paying for it with labor, like cleaning, and
It's a
doing that
scam
for a
artist.
year or 2 years and then never being taught anything.
Right.
And so there has to be an expectation set from both sides, and there's not a set exact thing of expectations that's right for every situation. But ideas of like, you're going to be expected to do this, this, and this, and I'm expecting to learn this, this, and this, and here's a general timeline. And of course, depending on how much you're working, and if you've got a family outside of work and all that thing, like you might not be able to be in the shop 40 hours a week. You might be in the
Right.
shop 10 hours a week. And of course, your apprenticeship's going to take a lot longer if
Right.
that's the case. But you should have an idea of like, okay, I'm going to be here for this much this month, and I'm going to pay you this much, or I'm going to do this much work, or I'm going to stay for this much longer after my apprenticeship is done to thank you for this time you're putting in and these skills you're giving me. But I'm going to learn XYZ. And that doesn't mean that a machine is in your hand on week 2.
No.
But you should be learning things. Like if you're in the shop just cleaning and you haven't learned anything about drawing or art or how to set up or take down a station,
Yeah.
and you're like 3 months in,
Red flag.
I would be looking at it and saying, what's going on here? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you are being taken advantage of.
Yes. Because that person should have some kind of idea, a timeline set up of how you're going to learn.
Right. There should be a
And-
plan. Like,
And there are really, really good apprenticeships where you don't touch a machine for 8, 9, 12 months of the first part of it. And you're just learning all of the foundations of how to get to that point. But you're still making progress, visual
Yeah.
progress, and you know what the next step is.
Yeah,
So
it's not.
you should be able to
Look at it like the
evaluate-
Karate Kid. You're learning. You may be painting the fence and waxing the cars and painting the house and sanding the floors, but hey, you're learning.
Are you
Understand.
just cleaning toilets
Right.
and nobody's taught you anything and no one will answer your questions and no one's looking at your art? Like, it's different if you're cleaning the shop and also while you're sitting manning the phone in the front desk, they've given you an art assignment to study. Like, you're going to study American traditional daggers this
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
I want you to go draw some, come back at the end of the week, show me what you have. We'll talk about it together. You can tell if you're learning and growing in that environment. And if you're not, probably talk to your mentor about it and see what's going on.
right.
And tell them you want to learn. And if they're still not responsive to that, it might not be the right environment.
Right. I, and I figured that I understand, like it doesn't do anybody any good to have an artist in the shop that's not making any money for themselves or for you or, as a business. So a lot of people bring in an apprentice just to streamline them through and just like apprentice factory is what
Yes.
you've called it. And then there's the other people that will, make them wait like 2 or 3 years. And it's like, so for 2 or 3 years, you've got somebody in the shop that's like really just doing free work and
Cleaning toilets and being hazed.
Right.
Because they're testing you to see if
I
you've
would,
earned
right.
it.
And that really invested, but that's the thing is like, I think that there's a middle ground personally.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that there's something that, and I don't know if, there's, and the progress comes down to the apprentice and the mentor and whatever they agree on, they're going to work at their own pace. They're going to move at their own, whatever their goals are and what's expected of the apprentice and what the apprentice expects that they expect to learn from their mentor. And that's something that is unique to everyone. But like, I think there should be a middle ground. But having to pay for an apprenticeship, that makes sense in the sense that, if you expect to just up and leave, then yeah, like that's fine. If you don't pay for it, if you do like work around the if you pay it through work in the shop throughout your apprenticeship.
Or through time paying booth rent as an established artist in that shop once you receive your license and your apprenticeship.
Exactly.
program.
Is that a pretty common, all
I
right,
mean-
so a guarantee, like, all right, well, I expect you, once you're licensed, to be with me here at the shop for 2 years.
For 2 years, at least a good 2 years,
Yeah.
it's a respect factor, you know. It's because during that first 2 years, you're going to develop that kinship and that
Right.
friendship,
And
and
trust with everybody
that
in the
trust and that respect between one another. That you're going to be like, you know what, I respect this enough to where, yeah, I want to hang out.
Mhm.
I want to stick with this studio for the next few years. It may turn around and you may end up staying for the next 5 years.
Right.
And that's great. If that's what you choose to do. If not, you want to move somewhere else and you want to be around a different group, by all means. You want to move to a different state, have at it. There's better opportunities. I'm not one to go, look, I'm going to keep you trapped. You're stuck here.
Right.
It's just, again, like I said, it's that respect factor that, you gave me something valuable that I can take with me no matter where I go in life. I may be down and out and not be able to get a job anywhere, but I've got tattooing skills. I could go and get a tattooing job. At least you've got something that can earn you money, something that you can literally fall back on and not have any worries whatsoever, unless you're just a shitty individual that nobody wants to hire. But I mean, coming from me, that's not the type of person I want to turn out.
Right.
If you want to stay a couple of years after, great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I would hope to get
Right.
out of that, because I've built that friendship and trust over the last 2 years, that it would be that, yeah, I want to stay here for a while.
Right.
I've built this, because you're going to build a clientele over that next year or whatever of learning. And why shop hop? Why get up and move? If you want to go in, your intention is to go and open a studio after I teach you, then yeah, we need to discuss some things. There should be some sort of due process to where it's like, okay, look, man,
Well, and
I owe you something.
Fresh out the
You know.
gate, who's going to just go straight into making?
There's
You know.
there
A lot of
there's a
people-
Well,
lot.
and I know, but that's the
There's
thing.
a
It's like
lot.
there's a part of me that feels like the cream will rise to the top. Those situations, it's a do or die.
It is,
trash
but
will
then
take itself
you
out.
get that's why you see the oversaturation of studios. It's because it's like, oh, I'm gonna because their whole mindset from the get go, I want to go and own my own studio.
Is that an
shoot,
ego thing? Is it a money thing? Is it a
Yeah,
I
but
just can't manage to get along with other people
I think
in the
it's
workplace
I think
thing?
it's a combination of all of that. It's an ego thing. It's a money thing. It's a glamour thing. It's a
Yep.
it's a status thing.
Because it'll have my name on it.
Yeah, it's
But check
so,
it. Like, why are you wanting to do that? Because it's expensive to run your own place and be the only one paying for the water bill, the electricity bill, the internet bill, the rent.
Yeah.
Like,
But
and
they think that
what,
they
you
can
think
go
you're
out
gonna
and
bring other
find
people
another
underneath
4 or
you.
5 artists to
do it
load
for 'em.
into.
But
yeah,
then you're also deciding that you don't have anything else left to learn from people that are further along in this journey than you
Right,
are.
and that's the thing is like, ideally they'll just pack in a bunch of artists that pay for everything and they can just kick back and be the boss.
what you do is you create. I think personally, you create a monster is what you do. Because then
And look, those
you
monsters will-
spend the 2 years teaching that person. They jump ship, and the first thing that they do is they go out and they find them an apprentice. Because wow, I can get you licensed this quick. I can do this,
And then you give me
you've
money
then
to
you've,
pay my
you've,
bills.
You've created the
you
thing, the
clean my
very thing
shop.
that you despise and you don't like. You've created that kind of monster to go, look, I'm going to start turning out apprentices, and I'm going to hire an apprentice every 30 days, and then I'll have my shop full of tattoo artists, and then I'll be making my. Well, wait a second, I just spent 2 years with you and you're turning them out in 30 days. Why did I do this for you? I did this for you to build something for yourself personally. Now 5 years down the road, if that's what you want to do,
Yeah, when you
after
have the experience.
after the first 2, and then you spend another 2, cool. And then by year 4 or 5, if you're like, hey man, thinking about opening a studio, okay, cool, man. I applaud you.
Yeah, you had a
Have
few
at it.
years to practice
To
and
practice
understand
and
and see
understand
the
the
noise
biz-
and the BS that it takes. Like you have a
Yeah.
perspective to be
you've
able
got,
to do that.
You've got
I
that
can help you.
ambition and that drive to go and do something better. But 9 times out of 10, if you've got somebody that is that solid that won't happen. They're not going to jump ship. They're going to stay with it for
And
a
it's
while.
an opportunity for a mentor to be like, yeah, actually, I could help you with that. And oftentimes it starts
Right.
a whole nother beautiful relationship when they work together on and creating another thing or an off branch or just, just being a part of that person's progress.
I mean, who's to say that they couldn't be a part of a bigger picture with the shop, that
Right.
they're at?
Right,
Yeah.
because if you're a positive mentor who cares about their vision
and they
and
feel
their
safe with
dreams,
you.
and they can communicate to you without your ego getting in the way, that maybe that's something that could have been a really awesome partnership.
Yeah.
As opposed to it just splintering, and then you end up with people with scratcher shops
I mean, you
that are
could
wrecking
be,
people,
yeah.
and people that are really talented artists, but they don't have the business sense to open their own shop, and they go under immediately, and then they've got all this debt because they
Well, and that
tried to start
reflects bad
something
on
new
their
that was
teacher
too
too.
expensive.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, obviously they weren't prepared.
Right.
And that falls down on you as a
Yeah,
teacher,
the
as a
mentor,
mentor.
and then you get a bad rap because then
Right.
it's like, wow, boy, you just did this, and then look what he did. He just took everything that you taught him and just ran it into the dirt.
He acts like he's raising a barn, but you're the barn.
But behind the scenes,
Yeah.
these are things that are plaguing like a mentor's mind from the very beginning. When they first take on an apprenticeship,
That's why it's so hard. That's
a
why
lot
a lot of
they
people
take
don't.
their
A lot of good artists don't want to take on that responsibility because that's a fear.
It's a huge commitment
they
you're making
take
to
their
somebody.
struggles home and they
yeah.
stress about them just as much. They lose sleep over where their apprentice should be or what they're struggling with and solving problems because they're supposed to have the answers. In fact, and oftentimes a good mentor understands the questions that need to be asked that the apprentice has no idea that that's even a thing. And that's that's what plagued me is like there's a lot of questions I have now that I'm just like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing, or I didn't know how to phrase it, or I didn't know what the question to ask. Because he wasn't going to teach me. He wasn't just going to give me a heads up. I had to ask directly and then hope he didn't haze me or tease me. But that was the hard thing about it is like there's aspects to this that people aren't even aware of, let alone know to ask.
Yeah.
And those are stresses that a teacher in general, all teachers, they go home at night and they have to solve these problems that don't exist to anybody else.
Nope, you're right.
So I've got a question for you, David. Something I see a lot in this kind of like old versus new debate where you have all these, these new people coming up and then there's people defending the way it's always has been. And there's people that have been in the industry forever that love the growth and development, but there's people that are really hesitant about it. Sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for ego reasons. They talk about having to earn it. Like you have to earn it. And I feel like sometimes it's used as a justification for hazing or for other things like I like just using people and manipulating people and not treating them well. This you have to earn it attitude. So what do you see as some of the like, how is the you have to earn it used correctly? How is that wielded well?
How do you earn it correctly?
How do you like what does an apprentice have to earn? Can they just show up and be like, I like tattoos? Or do they have to bring stuff to the table like people come to the table without an ability to manage a schedule or show up on time reliably or communicate with someone
there's a
respectfully?
lot. There's a lot. There's like you said.
What do you have to earn as an apprentice?
There's showing the reliability. One that this is something that you want. When I look for somebody, it's to earn that apprenticeship. It's showing up. It's showing that dedication that this is what you want. Okay, the aspect of coming with a solid portfolio, going, look, this is what I have to offer. Don't come with me, and say, okay, yeah, I want an apprenticeship. Well, show me what you got. Oh, I don't have that. Okay, well then, how do you expect me to?
And not scratcher work on your cousin.
Yeah,
You're talking about like drawings that this person has done.
I want to see your ability to draw your art. The things that you're capable of doing.
Preferably in different multiple styles.
As far as
great.
and then earning it once you're in the door. Again, that's just showing your support, your dedication to the craft, your dedication to the studio you're at, to the people that are around you, that respect, that trust. not, you know, don't come in with it that, oh, these people are going to burn me, these people are going to do this, so I'm going to be this way. No, you got to kind of open yourself up, and I know that that's hard
Right.
to do, but you have to be kind of
Like being
open and
humble.
receptive, and humble is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you said that, because that's something that I always preach to Tim, is always stay humble. Don't ever think that you're bigger than anybody else, because there is somebody, a bigger, badder dog that's out there
Yeah.
that is just as hungry, if not hungrier, that is willing to do whatever it takes to make it in this business. Some of them people out there, I've seen artists that have popped up that have been working tattooing 3-4 years that are just so incredibly good that it's like, don't ever stop and think that, you know,
Right.
don't forget where you came from,
Yeah.
because you know what, you were there once before, and you had to scratch and claw to get where you're at. So there is always that person out there that's willing to do the same exact thing, that is just as hungry. So it's understanding, be humble, you know, be aware of the people that are around you, you know, respect that, respect the shop that you're at, respect, you know, the craft, the art,
Like willing to learn and research on their
always
own. And,
always be open, always be receptive. That's how you earn these things. It's not just coming in and think that it's going to just be handed to you, because it's not. It's something for me that is earned. I've watched, I consider my mentor not somebody that taught me how to tattoo, but gave advice to me all the time, anytime that I talked to him, and it was always advice, and those things I carry with me, and I've always carried with me, because those are valuable life lessons. You know, like for instance, you know, the minute you stop critiquing your work is the minute you need to stop tattooing.
Yeah.
Because when you look at your tattoo and go, oh yeah, you know, that's
Yeah, it
great,
is what
I
it
did, I mean, I always,
or you don't even look at it afterward. You're like, yeah, it was a Tuesday.
and part of that I carry that with me, and that's part of the reason why I don't post a lot of my stuff, is because I always look at it and I'm critiquing it so hard that I don't feel like it's worth others seeing, which is my downfall. That's my personal downfall,
Because there's always a balance.
because it's I don't feel like I'm good enough,
Because
at
you
that
can be
point.
humble without being self-deprecating.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and it's one of those things that I carry with me. You know, I remember the day that I went, they were having nationals in Reno, and he was there, and we went up and saw him, and I showed him some of my line work, and he gave me some praise and was like, that line work's really good. And I was just smitten over that. Just was like, wow, you know, this is coming from a guy that, I mean, knows everybody in the business. You know, he's
Right.
been there, done that, and for him to tell me that was just like, wow.
Like George Clooney has told you you're pretty.
Yeah, you know, like you could possibly be the man of the year one of these days. You know, it was one of those great feelings. You know,
Right.
it was like, holy cow, he really thought something that I did was cool. You
Well,
know,
dude, it didn't even take that much.
you know,
Like,
and it is humbling, very humbling.
well, and I talk.
So I like I said, to earn those ways, and when you take those things from people that have given you advice, and you try to learn from that and apply it to what you already know, it just makes you better.
Yeah.
You know, an award, a plaque, whatever, doesn't, as you said, doesn't make me any better than what I already am. You know, it's what I continually learn that
Right.
makes me better.
Like, what are you
Right.
doing for the walk-in that comes in on a late Tuesday and wants the same thing off Pinterest that every other person that comes in
Person
on
wants,
Tuesday?
and that
What kind of respect and time and honor do you do for this person, or this
Yep.
person who just wants like their grandpa's name on it?
Right.
What kind of time and honor and respect do you give to this person's experience?
if you can
And
treat
I
them like
still-
everything
yeah.
they want to do is
and I
the
still
greatest
do
thing.
those things. It's, you know, you come in,
Compared
oh,
to
I want
convention
to
piece.
absolutely,
Yeah.
I'll set that up, and let's
Yeah.
knock this out for you. You know, tell me your story. I want to
Right.
hear it.
That's something I'll always
yeah.
respect about how you operate, because you're going to give the same time and respect and dedication and quality to somebody who comes in and wants a family member's name on them as somebody that's wanting a piece at a convention that you're trying to win an award on.
Right.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. Like there was really nothing that was off limits for you. Like if somebody came in and you were about to leave in like 20 minutes and there was like a 10-minute, 15-minute little banger, walk in. Like if you were available and you were like, yeah, have a seat.
You're not
We'll run
above it. Yeah.
We'll do it. Like you were not above it. There were times where there'd be like a couple or like 2 or 3 people that wanted matching tattoos. You would like, I'll take one. And you could do all 3, but you're like, does anybody else want to take the other so we can get them all done at once? And they can chat while they're, because you understood the moment that they were in as people.
For
like
me,
the 3 of them come
because
in.
For me, it's not a matter of me making that money. I mean, I'm not afraid to share that wealth.
But
that wealth
just
needs
knowing
to
that
go
all
everywhere.
3 of them together could be
Right.
getting the same thing
thing.
together
And it's
at
not
the
your
same
ego.
time.
You're not going to put the heart with their anniversary day in your portfolio.
No.
Right.
It's about their experience.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
It's all them. I mean, because without them, I'm not who I am.
Right. You don't get to
I
do what you
don't
do.
get to own a studio.
I don't get to do the big elaborate pretty piece, and I don't get to do the tiny little walk-in
Yeah,
bangers.
yeah.
you
Well,
know.
then, like, best case, they come back and they want one of those
Right,
crazy
it's
wackadoodle
it's
pieces
a
that
slippery
makes you
slope.
grow as an artist. And
And then
then,
they'll bring their friends, and then they'll bring in their other 11 sorority girls,
Right?
and
And
it's
then
like,
you're tattooing 18 butts
and then I have like literally the best tattoo day of my life,
of your life. Exactly.
besides my wife's sessions, of course.
but you're
and a
not
lot of
coming
that-
in with ego and not coming in entitled saying the
Right.
world owes me this. And
No.
you're not coming in
This world owes
with
you
jealousy.
nothing.
And
Right.
yeah, it's
You work for it. You earn it.
there's so much freedom and independence. You have every opportunity to sit around and wait for a client to fall in your lap and not be successful. You have every opportunity to not grow,
Yeah.
and
Right.
you can do awesome stuff with it. It's just
You
what
got
you make of it.
you got to sell yourself to that client. If you can't sell it, then they ain't buying it,
Yeah.
and they ain't gonna sit in your chair because they ain't gonna trust you.
Right, but you're not going to be the same artist in 5 years that you are now because of that attitude. And there's
Right.
artists that, you could probably make more money faster if you were just hustling and selling yourself all the time and then printing something off the internet, quickie stamping it on somebody and trying poorly to copy
But there's
it
no
in a
longevity
rush,
in it.
and then bragging over how fast you got it done and how much of it you just winged off the top of your head.
And there's a lot of artists that do this independently, and they just run their own private setup or whatever. And it's just
Right.
like, it's not until they step out again later on, like a year or 2 later, and they realize like everything that they've been doing, like the world is passing them by.
But there's a reason
Other
your
artists'
clients that
skills are
drive
just
to come see
burying
you.
them.
Yeah, and it's that like artistic integrity and
Right.
respect for your clients, that you have people that are traveling to come get a tattoo from you.
Right.
Something I did when I was looking is I found an artist I really admired who I knew wasn't taking an apprentice, because this artist had only been tattooing for a short amount of time and just was at a new shop and was not in that place at the moment. But I said, hey, this is something I'm interested in. Could I bring my portfolio for you to look at and give me feedback? And then let me know what you think of my portfolio, what I could add to it, like what's it missing. Help me think of like ideas for questions I could ask to someone. What are some shops you know of that might be a positive place to work? What are some places that you think I should definitely not touch with a 30-foot pole because there's a toxic work environment, or because, they're just not going to teach me, or whatever the case may
Right.
be, because it's kind of a small industry. It's a small world. Everybody talks to everybody. And there's always going to be a few shops where it's like, don't go work for them, and they might be an amazing artist and they might not be a toxic person. Maybe they're just a garbage at running a business
Yeah.
and they don't pay the bills or whatever, So, generally people are fairly open to have those conversations if you ask. I had a lot of good conversations in a lot of shops before I found a place. I don't want to set somebody up the same path that I felt like I was on. Because
Yeah.
I would like to set somebody up on a path that I've been on with all the positive things without some of the negative things and, a concrete plan. But I do think that like us, the artist community we've created here, that if we were to bring somebody on, we would be really intentional about thinking like who is someone that's going to add to the shop artistically that we're going to be able to learn from as well while they're learning from us. And I think that's
Right.
really cool.
You guys want to wrap up here then?
Yep.
That's
Cool.
We're good.
All right.
We need like a sign off.
Okay.
We might have to brainstorm.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah.
Please be
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Right.
Awkward eye contact. Goodbye.